There are just two ideas which are associated in the popular imagination with the first thought of the Isle of Man. The one is that Manxmen have 3 legs, and the other that Manx cats have no tails. But whatever the popular conception or misconception of man and its people, I shall assume that what you ask from me is that simple knowledge of simple things which has come to me by the accident of my parentage. I must confess to you at the outset that I am not much of a hand at grave history. Facts and figures I cannot expound with authority. But I know the history of the Isle of Man, can see it clear, can see it whole, and perhaps it will content you if I can show you the soul of it and make it to live before you. In attempting to traverse the history, I feel like one who carries a dark lantern through 10 dark centuries. I turn the bull's eye on this incident and that, take a peep here and there, a white light now and then a blank darkness. Those 10 centuries are full of lusty fights, victories, vanquishments, quarrels, peacemaking, shindies, big and little, rumpus, solemn and ridiculous, clouds of dust, regal dust, political dust, and religious dust. You know the way of it. But beneath it all and behind it all lies the real, true, living human heart of Manxland. I want to show it to you, if you will allow me to spare the needful time from facts and figures. It will get you close to man and its people, and it is not to be found in the history books. Islanders. And now first, we Manxmen are islanders. It is not everybody who lives on an island that is an islander. You know what I mean? I mean by an islander one whose daily life is affected by the constant presence of the sea. This is possible in a big island if it is far enough away from the rest of the world. Iceland, for example. But it is inevitable in a little one. The sea is always present with Manxmen. Everything they do, everything they say, gets the color and shimmer of the sea. The sea goes into their bones, it comes out at their skin, their talk is full of it. They buy by it, they sell by it, they quarrel by it, they fight by it, they swear by it, they pray by it. Of course they are not conscious of this, only their degenerate son, myself, to wit, a chiel among them taking notes, knows how the sea exudes from the Manxmen. Say you ask if the governor is at home. If he is not, what is the answer? He's not on the island, sir. You inquire for the best hotel. So-and-so is the best hotel on the island, sir. You go to a Manx fair and hear a farmer selling a cow. Aw, says he, she's a terrible grain. Cried her for milking, sir. And for butter, maybe there isn't the like of her on the island, sir. Coming out of church, you listen to the talk of 2 old Manx women discussing the preacher. Well, well, ma'am, well, well. Aw, the voice at him and the prayers and the beautiful texts. There isn't the like of him on the island at all, at all. Always the island, the island, the island, or else the boats, and going out to the herrings. The sea is always present. You feel it, you hear it, you see it, you can never forget it. It dominates you. Manxmen are all sea folk. You will think this implies that Manxmen stick close to their island. They do more than that. I will tell you a story. 5 years ago, I went up into the mountains to seek an old Manx bard, last of a race of whom I shall have something to tell you in their turn. All his life he had been a poet. I did not gather that he had read any poetry except his own. Up to 70, he had been a bachelor. Then this good Boas had lit on his Ruth and married and had many children. I found him in a lonely glen, peopled only in story, and then by fairies. A bare hillside, not a bush in sight, a dead stretch of sea in front, rarely brightened by a sail. I had come through a blinding hailstorm. The old man was sitting in the chimney nook, a little red shawl round his head and knotted under his chin. Within this aureole, his face was as strong as Savonarola's, long and gaunt, and with skin stretched over it like parchment. He was no hermit, but a farmer, and had lived on that land, man and boy, nearly 90 years. He had never been off the island, and had strange notions of the rest of the world, talked of England, London, theatres, palaces, king's entertainments, evening parties. He saw them all through the mists of rumor, and by the light of the Bible. He had strange notions, some of them bad shots for the truth, some of them startlingly true. I dare not tell you what they were. A Royal Institution audience would be aghast. They had, as a whole, a strong smell of sulphur. But the old bard was not merely an islander. He belonged to his land, more than his land belonged to him. The fishing town nearest to his farm was Peel, the great fishing centre on the west coast. It was only 5 miles away. I asked how long it was since he had been there. 15 years, he answered. The next nearest town was the old capital on the east coast, Castletown, the home of the governor, of the last of the Manx lords, the place of the castle, the court, the prison, the garrison, the college. It was just 6 miles away. How long was it since he had been there? 20 years. The new capital, Douglas, the heart of the island, its point of touch with the world, was 9 miles away. How long since he had been in Douglas? 60 years, said the old bard. God bless him, the sweet, dear old soul. Untaught, narrow, self-centered, bred on his byre like his bullocks, but keeping his soul alive for all that, caring not a ha'porth for the things of the world, he was a true Manxman, and I'm proud of him. One thing I have to thank him for. But for him, and the like of him, we should not be here today. It is not the cultured Manxman, the Manxman that goes to the ends of the earth, that makes the Manx Nation valuable to study. Our race is what it is by virtue of the Manxman who has had no life outside man, and so has kept alive our language, our customs, our laws, and our patriarchal constitution, our island. It lies in the middle of the Irish Sea, at about equal distances from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Seen from the sea, it is a lovely thing to look upon. It never fails to bring me a thrill of the heart as it comes out of the distance. It lies like a bird on the waters. You see it from end to end, and from water's edge to topmost peak, often enshrouded in mists, a dim ghost on a grey sea, sometimes purple against the setting sun. Then as you sail up to it, a rugged rocky coast, grand in its beetling heights on the south and west, and broken into the sweetest bays everywhere. The water clear as crystal and blue as the sky in summer. You can see the shingle on the moss through many fathoms. Then mountains within, not in peaks but round foreheads. The color of the island is green and gold. Its flavor is that of a nut. Both color and flavor come of the gorse. This covers the mountains and moorlands, for except in the north the island has next to no trees. But oh, the beauty and delight of it in the spring! Long broad stretches glittering under the sun with the gold of the gorse, and all the air full of the nutty perfume. There's nothing like it in the world. Then the glens, such fairy spots, deep, solemn, musical, with the slumberous waters clad in dark mosses brightened by the red fuchsia. The fuchsia is everywhere where the gorse is not. At the cottage doors, by the waysides, in the gardens. If the gorse should fail, the fuchsia might even take its place on the mountains. Such is man, but I am partly conscious that it is man as seen by a Manxman. You want a drop of Manx blood in you to see it aright. Then you may go the earth over and see grander things 1,000 times, things more sublime and beautiful, but you will come back to Manxland and tramp the mole hills in May, long hour in and long hour out, and look at the flowering gorse and sniff its flavor, or lie by the chasms and listen to the screams of the seabirds as they whirl and dip and dart and skim over the Sugarloaf Rock, and you'll say, after all, that God has smiled on our little island, and that it is the fairest spot in his beautiful world, and above all, that it is ours. The name of our island. This is a matter in dispute among philologists, and I am no authority. Some say that Caesar meant the Isle of Man when he spoke of Mona. Others say he meant Anglesey. The present name is modern. So is Ellen Vannin, its Manx equivalent. In the Icelandic sagas, the island is called Mon. Elsewhere, it is called Eubonia. One historian thinks the island derives its name from Mannin, in being an old Celtic word for island. Therefore, Medon in, pronounced Mannin, would signify the middle island. That definition requires that the Manxman had no hand in naming man. He would never think of describing its geographical situation on the sea. Manxmen say the island got its name from a mythical personage called Manannán Beg Maci Léir, Little Manannán, son of Léir. This man was a sort of Prospero, a magician and the island's first ruler. The story goes that if he dreaded an enemy, he would enshroud the island in mist, and that by art magic. Happy island, where such faith could ever exist. Modern science knows that mist and where it comes from. Our history. It falls into 3 periods. First, a period of Celtic rule. Second, of Norse rule. Third, of English dominion. Manx history is the history of surrounding nations. We have no sagas of our own heroes. The sagas are all of our conquerors. Save for our first 300 recorded years, we have never been masters in our own house. The first chapter of our history has yet to be written. We know we were Celts to begin with, but how we came we never have learnt, whether we walked dry-shod from Wales or sailed in boats from Ireland. To find out the facts of our early history would be like digging up the island of Prospero. Perhaps we had better leave it alone. 10 to 1, we were a gang of political exiles. Perhaps we left our country for our country's good. Be it so, it was the first and last time that it could be said of us.